What's up, everybody? It's Ivan with Trout's Fly Fishing, back with the forecast for May 1st. We've made it through April. April seemed like it went on a little bit longer than most months do. I don't know why. What could have caused that? Who knows? But anyway, we're starting to get a little bit warm. We're in late spring, so things are starting to change a little bit more, adding some bugs to the menu for a lot of fish, and then also adding some water to a lot of the rivers. So a lot of things to talk about there. I will say on a personal note, this is the last forecast I'm going to be doing with a beard for a little bit. I lost a bet. Basically, I was fat. Now I'm less fat, but I needed to get less fat. And so I want to cherish this moment. Cue up like Boys to Men, like that song from slow dancing in high school. The good time that made us laugh. It's been like 8 years with this, and I lost a bet. So goodbye, beard. I'm a little bit worried that there's going to be 3 chins under here, but we'll see. So next forecast, when you tune in, don't be scared. It's still me. Terrifying version of me, but it's still me. So there's that, which clearly is taking up more of my brain than it should, but neither here nor there. So anyway, we're into May, as I said. That means that caddis are going to start to play a bigger role, but we're also seeing some bumped flows. So, it's a bit of junk month. Whether you're fishing tailwaters or freestones, making sure, especially with the freestones, that you're sort of dialing in weather patterns and also looking at the hydrograph to make sure you can sort of find those flatter or dropping periods of time. So finding some cooler weather, sort of targeting those freestones then, and then also on the tailwaters, I should say, making sure that you aren't afraid to throw some of the junkier stuff in your box. Cheesman Deckers, Dreamstream, 11-mile scuds should be on the menu if you see bumps and flow. But you should obviously always have leeches, worms, eggs, stoneflies. Throwing some junk this time of year can put some fish in the net for sure, and you can also bump up those tippet sizes. Obviously, here in Denver, we're still we still have the stay-at-home order. There's some various stay-at-home orders or travel bans, so to say, in a variety of counties. So make sure you're up to date on that. And yeah, let's talk about the fishing and not the COVID. I'd rather talk about fishing, right? Fishing's cool. And this time, instead of bugs, flow, weather, we're going to do weather, flows, bugs, because I think it's important to sort of take into account those first 2 things, weather and flows first, because it's sort of going to dictate what bugs you're going to use. So let's get to it. Let's start with weather. Weather. So I was talking to Zeke up in the high country. Manages our Frisco location, and he had driven past and also had fished the Colorado, and then had heard some reports on the Eagle. Basically, you're seeing, with some warmer weather in the high country, you're seeing some elevated flows. And he said there's a little bit of a window now where it looks fishable around State Bridge and up, but the lower you go, the more color you're going to add in. I know the Roaring Forks added quite a bit of color low on the Eagle, especially below Milk Creek. You're going to see a ton of sediment in the river down there as the low elevation snow melts, and then you start to get a little bit of high elevation snow melt. So making sure you're looking at the weather, looking at the forecast for the next 10 days, sort of picking your spots. So if you have the flexibility, you're not sort of locked into fishing certain days of the week, and you can get out you have a little bit more flexibility. Finding those cooler periods is going to be the thing to do. Up in Sedalia, or I should say in Sedalia, over the next week or 2, looking at 68 today, 58 with thunderstorms, 68, 61, 57, 56, 61, 58, 48. So that's relatively cool, but you're still seeing, some, pretty into the 60s, you're starting to see some warmer weather. You're also seeing a lot of thunderstorms and PM thunderstorms, some clouds moving through. So that's something to keep in mind, especially when you're talking about blue wings. Really, when you're looking at those temperatures, blue wings and midges are still going to be primary food sources, but as it warms up, you're going to start to see caddis become more prevalent and important, and adding those into your subsurface offerings certainly be something I'd recommend. When you look at Vail, so let's take a look at Vail. We use that as the sort of marker for the high country. 61, so the warmest day is today, the 1st of May, and then you're seeing some days 59, 55, 56, 49, 55, 54, 50. Mostly sunny, some clouds mixed in. That's actually changed from yesterday. Yesterday when I looked, it looked like it was going to be a little bit hotter, so that's actually good news. Might keep the flows down a little bit and give us a little bit more of that sort of green, off-color streamer green or big bug green that we like to see on some of our rivers, and instead of sort of just blowing it out right away. So that's with lows below freezing, that's actually could give us a nice little ramp up into runoff, as opposed to just sort of hitting us right in the face with runoff, which is always nice. I sort of usually look at runoff as starting mid-May and then going through mid-June as sort of like the typical thing. Obviously, you can get some runoff starting in early May, and then it can go into July sometimes. Obviously, last year was a good example of that. But with those temperatures, we might not see the huge spikes that we've seen that I think I was expecting to see when I was looking at the forecast yesterday. So, with that in mind, try to pinpoint, look at the flows. So make sure the hydrograph isn't just shooting to the moon, and then also, sort of pair that with the information for wherever you want to go fishing. Pair that with the weather. So the cooler days, especially with those cooler nights, try to target the days after that. If you have a stretch of cooler weather overnight for 2 or 3 straight nights, should sort of keep those flows down. So, this is a really good time to pay attention to weather, especially on those freestones, and then also those flows. So, those tailwaters for the most part are going to stay pretty consistent. They might fluctuate a little bit, but the freestones are going to be the one where it's going to be a little bit more touch and go this time of year. So that's the weather. There's some good blue wing weather in there too, which I'm excited about. Let's get to the flows. All right, let's talk about the flows a little bit. Freestones, bumping. Is it the beginning of runoff? Maybe. Is it like the first push of runoff? Probably. We're seeing some bumps and flows. Obviously, it's been a little bit warmer the past couple days, the past week up there. So you're seeing some bumps and flows. I checked the flows yesterday. The Eagle at Avon was, I think, 440, so now it's 500. The Colorado actually is down a little bit lower, but you're still seeing a bit of a rising trend, so it's 1260. The Arkansas was, I think, 330-ish or 320 or something like that. Now it's 408 at Salida. And then the Roaring Fork was like at 880, and now it's at 1050. So you're seeing a little bit of a bump right now. This time of year, when you see those bumps, especially down low on any of those rivers, you're going to see more color added to the water. So, this is a good time to get above some of the tributaries that will add sediment. So, Milk Creek on the Eagle. I know at State Bridge, Zeke drove over it and said it was pretty, still looked like it was fishable. There might be a little bit of a window to fish, from State Bridge up. The Arkansas, tends to run pretty clean, but as you get lower, especially below some of the fire scars that are down low or down in the middle section, you start to add a bunch of sediment in there too. So keep that in mind. Typically going higher up is a good option in any of those river systems. And then also one thing to keep in mind, if you want to fish some of the lower stuff on those rivers, looking for cooling trends in the weather, and then looking for the hydrograph to flatten out for a couple days or start to drop. And usually you'll drop some sediment and you'll get a really good clarity for fishing. So keep that in mind. Tailwaters are going to be a little bit more easy to predict this time of year. Dream Stream is in the 60s, 68. 11 miles in the 60s, also at around 61, 62. And Deckers and Cheesman, they actually bumped that. So at Trumbull, 325. So 325s, you're starting to see a little bit more water pumping through there. And that, to me, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the bug section, that to me says, time to fish scuds, time to fish worms, eggs, stoneflies, big ugly stuff. It's you're starting to be able to throw a little bit more junk, throw a little bit more, some thicker tippet and the like. So that being said, I know last year this was the case as well. We had a huge snowpack last year. Runoff went through, like in Deckers and Cheesman, they had that pumping through into July. 11 Mile Dream Stream, the way they manage those upstream reservoirs, they tend to delay it a little bit sometimes. So we could be seeing that as well. And that means if you're not wanting to fight big water and you want to have clearer water to fish, maybe get some sight fishing in, maybe still catch good blueing olive hatch and into May. 11 Mile Dream Stream, good options, because last year they did the same thing where everything else was bumping along the South Platte, but 11 Mile Dream Stream, they kept it pretty low. So that's a good thing for some of the smaller bug. If you want to fish a little bit more techie, the 5 and 6X stuff, throw some caddis, some bluing olives, some midges. That's going to be a good sign there. For Deckers and Cheesman at 325, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but bigger bugs, but then also mixing in some of the standard small stuff that always puts fish in the net. So yeah, that's the flows portion. Hopefully I put a little graphic here. Hopefully I'm not too lazy or ran out of time. So yeah, keep temperature in mind, keep the flows in mind, and sort of use those two indicators as what to expect on the river when you're going in terms of the bug life. We go through spring, you don't see a ton of of fluctuation flows. You might see some bumps here and there, but so bug choice is gonna be pretty consistent. But as you get into this more variable time, as we're like beginning of runoff or whatever you want to call it, typically I look at runoff as typically starting in the mid-May and then going through mid-June. Obviously last year went through July, and it can certainly start this time of year too. So we might be seeing the early portions of runoff, especially with some of the rising trends we're seeing on some of those rivers, and is what it is. I didn't mention this in the opening, but Spinney is open on the 29th of April. Antero's open, 11 miles open. Good stillwater fishing is here, so that is also a good option. Also, should also mention the sort of neighborhood ponds and stuff like that. Obviously the DSP, you can catch fish in the DSP year round, but some of those ponds, those neighborhood ponds that are all along the Front Range, good places for smaller bass. Sometimes they have bigger bass, but usually smaller bass, carp. There can be some panfish and stuff like that in there. So also a good time to explore that. I know I just recently moved from up north to down south, so I'm excited to explore the neighborhood and see what lives in some of the ponds and water around here. So something I'm considering doing, especially I got a kid number 2 on the way, so I might be grounded for a little bit. These forecasts for the next couple months, if I'm being honest, might be a completely hearsay, based on hearsay and past experience. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I have to stay close to home for a little bit. So I'll be checking in with the guides, checking in with my friends, and checking in with the guys at the shop to make sure get you guys the most up-to-date information from all those rivers. So yeah, that's an aside that you guys didn't need to know, but whatever. Here we are. That was flows. We talked about weather. Let's get to the bugs. All right, bugs. So tailwaters, if they're running lower, like 11 Mile and Dream Stream, having caddis in your box, having bluings in your box, and having midges in your box, obviously you want to throw some attractors in there as well. Those are going to be pretty safe bets. Caddis don't need to be too complicated. Hare's ears, as Scott talked about in our spring fishing on the South Platte live stream that we did on Tuesday. I'll put the link up there. You can check that out. Scott obviously has 25 years of experience on the river, so he knows a thing or two about old Deckers. So Guy's Choice hare's ears, tungsten Z-wing caddis, copper johns. We have chartreuse copper johns that I've just added to my box that are jigged, and those are a good option for for caddis this time of year. I'd have those, and then for the blue wings, pretty much the standard stuff, things I've talked about in the past. You don't get terribly complicated. RS2s are obviously always good. Foam back emergers, Juju Batis, bars emerger, pretty much the standard stuff. You don't have to go outside the box too much, but if you have a blue wing, I would throw it this time of year. And then midges, you're going to see midges, especially in the mornings. Zebras, if you want to throw something a little bit bigger for the big spring midges, but then your standard, your Pat Dorsey stuff, your Charlie Craven stuff, your standard midge boogs that will always catch fish on the South Platte. I'd still have those in your box this time of year, even though you're seeing some elevated flows on some portions of the river. So when it does elevate, as it has at Deckers, throwing worms, so San Juans in a variety of colors, leeches, whether you're doing Myers mini leech, especially I would consider the jigged variant. If you're fishing some of the bigger water this time of year, so Deckers and Cheesman, I'd consider throwing the jigged variant of the mini leech. Those are really good options. Pine squirrel leech is obviously a go-to. Eggs, and then also scuds. So scuds live up in the reservoirs. They can live in some of the brackish, not brackish water, but some of the slower water along the South Platte. But for the most part, they're coming out of the reservoirs upstream, and they're present in all of the big reservoirs. They'll flush out, and you'll see fish key in on them when the flows get elevated. So keeping Ray Charles, UV scuds, having some tailwater, I think they're called tailwater scuds, having some of those in your box, definitely worthwhile this time of year, and good lead fly. Also a good secondary fly if you wanted to throw, say, a worm or leech or egg, and then throw like a size 14 to 16 scud, 12 to 16 scud, and then maybe throw like a blue wing or a midge off the back. Good options. Stoneflies. So I've talked a little bit about tailwaters, and those caddis flies that I mentioned, and as well the mayflies and midges, also good for freestones. Stoneflies, pats, wired stones, copper johns, prince nymphs, good options. You can throw some more attractor style. You can throw some more realistic imitations. Throw the Bitch Creek, especially on the Colorado. As salmon flies get more active, Bitch Creek is a good fly. Big old bug, gets your flies down quick. The thing is huge and heavy, so definitely something worthwhile. Super buggy. It's a good fly. When it comes to dry flies, if you're able to fish the Arkansas, if you live there and you can travel to Chaffee County, elk hair caddis, mini hots, Z-wing or the Z caddis, don't have to be terribly complicated. Clown shoe caddis, those are good flies to have in the box for the caddis hatch. You're also going to see the caddis hatch come off, on the South Platte and on the Colorado as well. So, I'd make sure you're well stocked there. And then, dry flies for your blue wings and midges, same stuff. Griffith's gnats for the midges, Matt's midge, Eric's Hive's midge. I don't know. I'd have them. I don't expect them to be super keyed in on them, but I'd have them. We're going to still see blue wings through the beginning of May, especially. So extended body blue wing olives, sparkle duns, blue wing olive Batis or the parachute Batis. That's a good option as well. High vis variety for myself. that's good. When it comes to the still waters, having balanced leeches, thin mints, buggers, like woolly buggers, always good options. You can catch fish on chironomids, but you can throw junk this time of year when they're a little bit stupider, and junk's always good from my perspective. So, having balanced leeches, having your thin mints, having your buggers, definitely worthwhile. Put those in the box. Have them if you're going still water fishing. You could also obviously throw the big chironomids, the ice cream cones and stuff like that. But yeah, throw big while you can. That's my sort of point of view. So there we go. Oh yeah, streamers. Streamers, especially when you're looking at some of the off-color water. I like black. I like black all the time, but I like black a lot this time of year, and also flashy. If you can combine it, have a black and flashy fly, I think that's going to put you in a good position. As a general rule, I like to throw bigger stuff this time of year. Moves more water, easier for them to hunt down, bigger meal. Especially when the flows rise, they're trying to pack it. They try to take any opportunity they can. So throw big and black. We have a bunch of big and black flies here at the shop. So give us a shout. We'll let you know what we have in stock. I should also mention that when you have the higher flows, you can drop down your tippet size as well. So if you were fishing 5, fish 4. If you're fishing 4, fish 3. If you're fishing 3, fish 2, so on and so forth. So not too complicated there. Big bug season's here. Variable flow season is here. So yeah, it's May. It's May. I can't believe it. Yeah. Open yet in the shop for obvious reasons. I know up in Frisco, and our Frisco shop has curbside pickup going on. We're not open for that kind of stuff down in Denver, but hopefully we'll be able to open for that soon. Then hopefully we'll be able to start to slowly open up here once we get a little bit more information from the mayor and see what's kosher. Obviously, we're gonna take all the precautions we need to take to make sure you guys stay safe and we stay safe, and we can all continue to get out on the water and do all the things we want to do. So yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. Comment down below, how many chins will I have in the next video? Interested to see how fat you guys think I am. My guess is 2. I would like 1 chin, but I'm guessing it's 2. So throw that down. Appreciate if you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Helps us out, helps the channel out. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.